Sorry about the difficulties. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to the North Carolina Encrypt Paranormal Project. This is Tom. I'm your host. And tonight we have my friend Jay Burch. He's going to be telling his encounter and just discussing, the whole topic and research and over the years what he's done. And so let's get into that. And if anyone has questions, wait towards the end because I want him to be able to talk about his encounter and get it out there before anyone asks questions. So if anyone does have questions, just wait till it's finished, and then we'll start answering. So, without further ado, here's Jay.
Hey, gang, how you doing, man? Long time,
buddy.
Tom. We've been friends for a long time. We don't get to talk all the time, but I'm happy to finally get to do this.
Sadly, life happens and work and family, but we've been actually talking since like 2016, 2017. Yeah. We were both.
You helped me. You recommended me as an admin on that Sasquatch Chronicles site there, and I just you and I both left at the same time and everything. So yeah, a lot's changed though. I mean, it's funny how people change their minds throughout time about things, and I think that's okay when you do. I mean, there was a time when I was an aper. I absolutely nothing has convinced me so far that these things are paranormal in any way, shape, or form. But I have changed my mind. I personally think what I saw with my two eyes was a human, not a human Homo sapiens sapien, but a human of some kind of. I mean, that woman's face was a Caucasian face. She just was like very big and covered in hair.
Ancient hominid human, right?
Something. She could have passed. Her face could have passed easily because I was comfortable enough watching her. When she was coming down. Of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves and everything, but. Until I realized that's not a woman. So yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I'm glad to finally connect and everything.
And one of our old friends, I didn't even realize, but you reminded me a couple days ago that our friend Jim Hart, he passed, huh?
Yeah, that's too bad. Even my wife was a fan of Jim. Bubba was, I don't talk much with some of the guys that I used to in the southern part of this, Coonbo and Chuck Schlabs and stuff like that. But he helped all of these guys out quite a bit, and he was a great guy. I wished him happy birthday every year, and every once in a while. Yeah. In fact, Bubba, when you and I had decided to leave the Sasquatch Chronicles fan site, Bubba was in constant contact with me there for a while, and just he was a really, really good guy.
Yeah, he kind of took us under his wing when we were kind of like ousted from the group, and we kind of took us under his wing and kind of gave us some information and tips and hints and just kind of gave us the whole knowledge into the whole topic of Sasquatch and Bigfoot and just everything that kind of surrounds that whole forum. He kind of
he knew so many people too. Yeah. I mean, that's the part. I was kind of new to that kind of stuff when you brought me into it, and I didn't know any of those people. He knew every one of them, and I just knew the one lady, which I don't remember her now. I just know that I spent an entire day with her, and I just loved her to death at one of our local events out here, and I just can't remember her name. It's been so long ago now. Hell, I'm an old man now.
Yeah, I wish I lived closer. I would definitely come out to some of those events out west, Washington, Oregon, because that's like hotspot galore. I mean, obviously North Carolina is a hotspot too, but out west, now those Ridge Mountains out there by Oregon, Washington, the north side of California, that place is just a hotbed for everything out there. I mean, it's insane. It's just. The trees are enormous. The mountains are, the mountain ridges are, 20,000 plus elevation. I mean, it's insane. So it's great. It's secluded. It's no man's land. I mean, obviously out here we got mountains and all that, but it's nothing compared to out west. So that's why.
Well, here where my wife and I live, this is Cougar, Washington. This was the red zone. We don't have. We are not a town. We have two little stores, and well. We have two little stores, one restaurant, and then we have this little vacation place up here with a restaurant and lodging. But this was the red zone when the mountain blew, and this is as far as you could go. Now, my wife and I went to Rife Lake over the weekend. That's 2-hour drive from here. And not only could we see Mount Adams, but we could see the top of Mount St. Helens. At one point, we were so close to Mount St. Helens, you felt like you could touch her. And then we were able to see Mount Rainier off in the distance. So and Mount Hood, which is in Oregon. So I mean, we're up nice and high. It's a beautiful lake we go to that we like to fish and just it's beautiful camping. So there's Sasquatch stuff going on there, but I'm not familiar with it. I like to only stay within my own bounds where I'm familiar with.
Yeah, familiar
particular area. What I know what to expect from these ones in this particular area we go to, and I always say that, you know, if you go into another area where you're not familiar with them, they will act different toward you and stuff like that, because they don't know you. Where these ones up here, I'm not saying they know us. We don't interact other than I try to call them in a little bit close as I can, but I'm more familiar with these ones on this side of Mount St. Helens than I am with any of the other ones. Some of the ones apparently, when I talk to other people, are a little more aggressive when you go a little more north, and so I'm not familiar with it. I don't know. I know that there's so many people that come here from other states and other countries and stuff, and I don't try to hide where we go or any of that shit. People know. All right, if you're in the Sasquatch world, you know. So these people like Shelley Covington trying to, I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest. I ain't going to say where. Everybody knows. It's everyone knows. It's this particular lake that there's so many people go there now that it's not even worth the trouble. I've been there twice, spent over 4 days each time, never even heard a peep. So I don't even mess with that area anymore.
I'm so dug into this conversation, I forgot all about my chat, so I'm gonna start scrolling the chat. But real quick, Flat Rock says, "Hey, barbecue Bigfoot Jay." So someone said, "Hey to you."
Oh, that's Flat Rock Booger.
Yeah, Flat Rock Booger says that's towards the bottom of the chat, so I didn't get there yet. But if you want to kind of start get into your first encounter, kind of what got you started into this, what made you want to know more and get out and learn more and kind of just, advance into the topic and go from there. We could, we'll ask some questions afterwards, but I want to get into because when you first told me, I was actually on the side of my house. I was like walking on a hill, like an incline hill, and I about fell over because I just about, I was just, it was such a deep, intense encounter. I literally about fell over on the side of my house walking on the incline hill because it was so intense and it just took me by surprise. And just the way you were telling it to me, because, I mean, back then it was still kind of fresh.
It was way fresh.
I could feel it in your voice, like that it was still, like, it traumatized you deeply. Like, I felt it from the sound of your voice and just through the frequency of your voice that you were, like, severely traumatized from this, and you were, it hurt you for a while. And you didn't know what to do. I mean, you wanted vengeance, you were mad, but you wanted to know, and you wanted to figure it out. So,
yeah. So you see, I'm not mad anymore. That's the thing. I wanted to go up there and I wanted to kill that son of a bitch, and that's what I said. Yeah. My wife bought me a shotgun, and I literally said, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to kill that son of a bitch, because I was so out of my mind, scared. I couldn't, even though he didn't get to my wife. All I kept seeing was him murdering her. And that was something mental that was really screwing with me for a long time. And a nice lady named Sibylla Kristen Irwin, she helped me out to start with by listening to me and all that. And she's a great human being. I even named our German Shepherd after her.
She's an artist too. She does sketches of people's encounters. If you reach out to her, she'll draw your whatever you see. She'll, to the best of her ability, and she could send it to you and all that. So yeah,
her and I are friends to this day. I mean, we do talk quite a bit, on the private stuff, the chat type of stuff. She's got a nice little podcast going now, but it was it took until I actually talked to the she squatchers, but it was the one in particular, Jenna. You don't ever see her online and stuff, her and I are friends, but we talk privately all the time, and she actually was able to get inside me and help get that out. She literally was able to get me to talk about some things that I never would have ever told anyone in my life. And so her and I, we just talked the other day. There's always going to be something a little special there. But there's a man named Leon Thompson that he was able to get inside and help me understand that I can't keep playing it the wrong way. The Sasquatch did not get my wife. It did not. It wouldn't. If he wanted to, he could have got us both.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He stayed right there in the wood line. But it was so over the top frightening to me, and she was so devastatingly scared that it affected me. I have to this day, I am still taking medication to sleep at night because I can't go to sleep without that. And even like this weekend, even though we were in a camp full of a lot of people, I still woke up so many times with strong medication to make me sleep. So, but that's how much that affected me.
I understand completely, because when I had my one of my recent encounters when I first moved to North Carolina, I had about a nightmare once or twice, and it kind of rattled me. I didn't talk about it, but I had a nightmare where I fell into like a dry well that was in my backyard in a ditch, and this hairy thing started climbing out of it as fast as it could, and I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get out of it quick enough, and it started getting closer and closer. And I remember just like screaming and yelling. I wanted waking myself up in one of those bad dreams that you wake up out of and you just feel like crap. So if you want to, let's do this. Let's get into your encounter. I'm sure everyone's excited to hear about it, and I'm actually excited to hear about it too, because it's been like a couple of years since I last heard it.
Well, I'm not so emotional about it now when I talk about it, because of Leon helping me to understand that it was a love story, that it was because of the love I held for my wife. We've been together almost 40 years. And to think that I was going to lose her just like that. And so he just told me, now when you see this encounter in your mind, see that she got in the car safely and everything was okay, and it's not your fault. Because here's the thing. Before I go on to the encounter, when I told the encounter on Sasquatch Chronicles and Wes had written it down and all that, the very first comment was some asshole saying, "What kind of a man are you to make your wife get out and get the keys?" She had dropped the keys. And so that affected me so bad. And she told me, no, you stayed out there until I was safely in the truck and or in the car. And she said, no, you did not fail me. She said the keys were dropped right outside the door, because she dropped them. She was so scared she dropped them. So
in the heat of passion of the moment, when your whole body's shaking and you can't move and you drop keys, and people don't realize it when you have an encounter. When I had one of my encounters, I shook so bad I couldn't even hold my whatever I had. I think I had my pistol in my hand. I almost dropped it because I was shaking so bad.
I only had a 32 Magnum revolver. And they don't even make those anymore, man. This thing was barely bigger than a 22. So
it's like a BB gun,
Yeah. But, there were times that because of that, I would go into these. Now, I've never dreamed about them or any of that kind of stuff, but I would, even at work, oh my God, I would break down bawling. And I'd be, at that time, I was a supervisor. And so I'd keep my welding hood on and just keep doing what I was doing to try to hide. And then I would just tell people, I got arc flashed, because I couldn't. I would relive it and relive it and relive it, but I didn't relive it the way it actually happened, So that's where Leon helped me out quite a bit. But I'll tell you, we went camping. I'm going to start it now.
Okay.
We went camping. It was this coming up holiday.
Where was it at?
Up here in Cougar, Washington, on the 81 road. I don't care who, all these people, well, I'm not going to tell you exactly. I don't give a shit. You can come up anytime you want. They're there. Up the 81, right past the Kalama Horse Camp. Her and I had just discovered these new sites. We were always camping lower, dispersed camping, and we went up past the horse camp, and there's all these beautiful, beautiful camps. you're allowed to stay for 14 days. You know, they're all off grid. And so I told her, well, let's come up this weekend. We'll the kids were going to come up and all that, my grandson and our youngest son. So we wanted to make sure we could get the spot we wanted that we had found. So we drive up there and somebody had already got it. My company at that time wasn't doing so well. So they let us have, that's a 3-day weekend. They let us have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off that year. So I had her take me up there Thursday after she got off work. We set up the camp and all that. We couldn't get into that one camp. So we found this other one that you had to drive back into. Only, maybe 50 yards, somewhere like that. And there was a nice creek going through there and all that stuff. And so we had set up the camp and all that stuff. And then we drove back down into Cougar where we live now, which was, I think, a 10-mile drive straight down. And then you just take a left and half mile, you're in our little town, which at that time we lived in Vancouver, Washington. So we bought some wood and all that stuff, drove back up, and I started a little fire and all that shit. And sorry, sometimes I'm old, man. I'm 60 years old, and sometimes that shit like that. And so anyway, I could feel something kind of ominous. I just felt that way, but I just thought, well, it's just because we have never been in this area or whatever. But I did actually feel something ominous, almost a sense of dread. And but it's stupid, after all these years, I still had that machismo, I wasn't going to say, well, I guess I'll just go home with you, so I stayed. And so she gave me a kiss and left, and I sat down. I had a nice fire, and I just opened a beer. I took a sip, and I was sitting there looking at the fire, and all of a sudden I hear a stomp. And immediately, I just went. It was. I looked like that, and I looked down. And I went, "That could be an elk." And I went, "It's not." I knew already. I knew, and so I was trying to control my heart rate, my breathing, all that stuff. So I sat there for a couple minutes, and so what I did was I pulled out my gun. And I held it up so it could be seen in any direction, and I set it down to show that I was acting like nothing was going on. Inside, my heart was about to bust right out of my chest. I set it down, and I had a great big old Bowie knife too. I pulled that out, held it up, like just like I'm like, held it up, and I set it down too. I wanted whatever it was. I knew what it was, but I just wanted to know that I was peaceful, and so I sat there for a couple minutes, and I thought, well, everything will be all right. So I took a drink of that beer, and I set it down, and then I heard like another thump or something similar. I stood up immediately, but then I caught myself and just took a deep breath, and I grabbed my chair, and I moved my chair away from. I put a couple bundles on the fire. I grabbed my chair and I moved it. Our tent was like 20 or 30 feet away. And so I sat down, I set it by that tent, and I went ahead and grabbed the beer I had, and a lantern. I sit over there for a little while, and I had my phone. And I made a quick little message. I was like, something's over there, something's stomping and scaring the crap out of me. And then I hit save. And I had a real cheap phone back then too. It's amazing in 5 years, 2016 to now. I guess that's 6 years, whatever. But so I sat over there, and it starts to rain a little bit. And like this, it ain't like this week. This year, we're having record high temperatures. We haven't been able to have a fire in 2 months, but
that drought, the drought alerts too. I mean, it's crazy.
So I sat there for a little while, and I started getting my courage back and everything. And understand, I'm stone cold sober. I just had a sip of beer, and so I thought, well, everything's okay. And yes, they are still active there. And so I went ahead and moved the chair back over there, and I sat down, and took about 10 minutes. And I decided I could hear it just wasn't right. So I tried to whistle, and I always forget about this. I tried to whistle. I couldn't whistle. All I could do was go. I couldn't whistle. My mouth was so dry. But then I heard two steps, like thump, thump. So I threw I put 7 bundles of wood on this fire. Very dangerous, stupid thing, but I was scared out of my mind. And
You wanted to show that you put a big light out there, and the other thing too with the whistle. You notice how when you want to whistle, you can't.
I can't. I couldn't.
When you don't want to whistle, you can whistle loud as shit. But when you really want to whistle, you can't. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's true. So at this time, I just was. I grabbed the lantern, and we hadn't camped in years. We hadn't camped in 15 years. This was the first year we actually began to camp again, because my wife took care of her mother. And so that, family comes first, even though I'd been doing Sasquatch stuff way back in the 90s. We stopped all of that stuff because family is much more important.
Yeah.
I look at my old friend Rene DeHenden and how he gave up his family to chase this nonsense. It's too bad. But family's most important to me. And so her mother finally.
Renee, real quick, Renee's a guy that lives. He kind of lives in the woods, and he kind of bounces house to house, friend to friend.
Rene DeHenden. Rene DeHenden was one of the 4 horsemen. Okay. I knew him. He was one of the 4 original guys that was at. He came to Bluff Creek after the Patterson-Gimlin thing happened. If you look up Rene DeHenden, you'll see he's quite an amazing man. He's passed away, I think, in 2001. Okay. But I knew him back in the early 90s through Will Jevning. So I moved everything we had. It turns out our lantern only had like a half a cylinder of fuel and all that stuff. And it was that twilight type of thing, not quite dark.
Right.
So here I am already racked to the gills with fear, and I've got no place to go. I am up Mount St. Helens, which is Spirit Mountain, which doesn't mean great spirits and wonderful spirits. They call that Spirit Mountain because they're not good spirits. And as people need to understand that when they think they know native lore, that's not what that means for Spirit Mountain. It doesn't mean great things. It means evil spirits. Right. And which they're not spirits, they're flesh and blood. I've seen them. But so I'm sitting there, and I got that fire going over there, and I can still hear them rustling around back there. They weren't afraid of that fire at all. That fire had to be 6 feet tall. It had to be, because the trees above them were swaying from the energy.
Oh, wow.
And so as I'm sitting over there, I decided I'm not going to drink any more beer at all. I set that beer down. It was the only beer I opened. I only took like 2 sips. I set it down, and excuse me. And I decided that I would just try to focus. I wouldn't look over there, and I would just kind of stay focused on the fire. Where they were was just to the right, and so as I'm sitting over there, something catches the corner of my eye, and it's the only solid black cottontail I've ever seen in my life. And that's up like 2,400 feet. Black, solid black. And it scared the crap out of me. So it just came out of this little berry field of huckleberries. And we got 3 or 4 different kinds of huckleberries that are bred with blueberries. And you got your elderberries. It's wonderful. I mean, I got a freezer full of this stuff. And so I sat there for a while, and then I just decided it's starting to get a little bit dark. So I lit the lantern, and I went inside the tent, and I had my gun in one hand, I had my Bowie knife in the other, and I just sat in there in that tent. I refused to get under the covers. I was soaking wet from the rain, and I was shivering, but I was staying warm because I was like extremely nervous. And they started this humming thing. They were just, I've never heard anything like it. It's just this constant hum. The only thing I could compare it to is like a didgeridoo or a, um, like when there's those bugs in Texas. They come by the June bugs. They come by the thousands once summer hits, like when we lived in Amarillo. And them things, they're super loud, but it's a type of thing.
Almost like a locust buzz when the locusts start breeding.
Yeah.
Breeding.
Oh my God. And it just wouldn't stop. It was like nonstop. So I went ahead and I stayed in the tent, and like I said, I was ready to either cut my way out the back, or I was honestly not going to shoot at them with that little gun. I was going to shoot myself. So I'd already decided. I felt like I was going to die in there. That's the part, and another that I had to struggle with, because I don't believe in that kind of stuff. But I wasn't going to be. One thing I don't want to be killed by an animal, and I don't consider them animals, but they're wild, whatever they are. And so I just laid in there, and that humming, it just wouldn't stop. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't trying to sleep. I couldn't sleep, but I finally made a little video telling my wife how much I loved her, and that what was going on, and that tell the boys I loved them, and the grandkids, and that I wish I could have done better as a parent and all that, and I wish I could have done better as a husband, and that all these things, and I was crying and everything because I was scared out of my mind. And then I just laid back and waited, because that was a long night. So at one point I had to pee so bad, being a diabetic. I barely opened the tent, laying on my side, and I'm looking out there, and all of a sudden this bubble, like about the size of a football. It looked like a bubble that a little kid would, like, you get where they put it in the thing. It's a big wand, and they do that. It's a big one. I'm just watching this thing go at about 4 feet high. It's just floating through the camp, heading toward the forest, and it had a red glow, but I could see through it. And
this is like an orb. This is like an energy orb that people say that Sasquatches, either form into or form out of. So
but I don't believe that for a second. I wasn't afraid of this thing, but I knew it was alive. I wasn't afraid of it at all, actually, because there's a place in Texas where they named the town after these things, and you got scientists that come from Japan and tell you that that these things are alive. Whatever they are, they're alive. But it is some sort of an energy thing. But I closed the tent real quick, and I yelled, I can't handle both of you fuckers at the same time. And and I was just kind of held I was like, you motherfuckers. And I was look, there was no place I could go. I'm up in Mount St. Helens, man. And there's no place to go. I had nowhere to go. And so then I laid there, and I laid there, and I laid there, and I laid there. Finally, at 5, I think it was somewhere around 5:45, somewhere in there, it let out a scream. And it was I'm not going to do it here, because where my wife and I live, we live in a 35-foot fifth wheel here in Cougar, and the forest is right here. We literally have a few cougars.
You don't want to call them in, man.
So I'm not gonna do that call.
Yeah.
But it did. It lasted about 15 seconds, and it started out with a ooh ah like that, but very working its way up, very deep in, very deep out, very deep in, very deep out, and then it let out just a scream and ended it with a wha, and then it got peaceful. It got peaceful quick, but I laid there, and I just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Finally, though, daylight comes, and it's about 6:45, and I'm not getting out. I'm laying in there, and finally having to pee finally just completely, because I wasn't able to do that when the orb went by. So I finally said, screw it. It was around 7 or 7:30. I opened the tent and I stood out, and I stood right in front of, I never do that, but I stood right there in front of that tent, and I took a pee, and I said, I don't even care. I was yelling out, I don't even care, because I could feel them. And I looked down and I saw that beer, and it was all like full of water and all that stuff. And I said, I don't give a shit, man. I reached out and grabbed that, and I gulped and gulped and gulped. And I figured, if I'm going to die, I want to die with a buzz. And then I just said, well, I just said, well, you know what? My clothes were so disgusting from sweating all night from the terror that I kept looking over in this area, and I kept saying, where everything was happening, I said, I'm going to build a fire, and I'm going to take a bath, and I'm going to drink some coffee. And I did. I just said, screw it. And I said, and I'm going to be naked. So I walked over there, took off my clothes. I started a fire, and I burnt my clothes because they were so disgusting from all that terror.
Said, this guy's freaking crazy. We're not going to bother him again.
And then I went ahead. I had this little teapot, and I got the fire going, and I got water in the teapot, and I got my coffee in the coffee pot, and I took a bar of soap with that little thing, that teapot, and I washed myself, and then I heated water again, and I got all the soap off me and all that other stuff, got some new clothes on, and then I made a cup of coffee, and I stood there and I drank it. And the whole time, though, it felt like you could feel the tension. It was awful. It's like, the only way I can describe it is we've all had this happen to us. Working side by side with someone you absolutely cannot stand. Someone you just absolutely, you hate them. You can't stand it, but yet you're forced to do it. That kind of tension. And it was thick. And so I would never look to that side where they were. I just couldn't. And so I turned my back to that area, and as I was drinking my coffee, I just took a quick glance to the left, and there was a red one standing over there, a big red one standing over there behind a tree with just his shoulders and his arms, and I could see the outsides of his legs, and he was just standing there. I didn't see no face or anything, but I could see him because he stood out like a sore thumb with all that green and brown. And so I wouldn't look over there, and I kept acting like nothing was wrong. I'm telling you, my heart felt like, I'm lucky I didn't have a heart attack. Oh yeah. Because I found out I've been sick now for a couple of years, and I went and got an EKG, and they told me I have had a heart attack within the last 4 years. So that's I'm on all kinds of stuff now, but I'm doing better. But yeah, I'll never forget that. But I didn't remember him at all, or her, whatever. I'm sure it was a male, but until Daniela kind of pulled that out of me, a gal named Daniela, and got to have something good to drink while you're doing this. Yeah. So it just yeah, I would say it was a ginger. But the thing was, it was kind of, it stuck out because it was so red. And so I said, screw it. And I finished my coffee, and I'd already, we had like $45 worth of wood up there. I burned it. So here we are. It's in the morning, and my wife is she's at work. I'm not going to see her till at least 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do? And I started hearing people show up, because now it was Friday morning on a holiday weekend. So I started hearing trucks and all that. And I just turned it's kind of stupid, but I turned my head back there and said, now do something, because there's people starting to show up and everything. But that thing just stood back there, and I decided, screw it. I'm going to go look for wood close to the road.
Right.
So I did. And when I came back, he was gone. But um, these birds, what we call camp robbers, they're a type of jay, scrub jays they call them.
Mm-hmm.
They're gray and white. They'll eat right out of your hand. They're extremely friendly birds. They showed up out of nowhere, and they're making their noise. But then I heard the Sasquatch don't imitate things all that well.
Yeah, I know.
They don't. They think they do. Now, if you're not a person that's familiar with the forest and the sounds and stuff, you could be fooled by them. Yeah. But I spent my life, camping and fishing, and I know pretty much the sounds of the forest. And I literally went, "Are you serious?" And that's, these birds were all over, so I started throwing them food, and they were all around me eating. And then I yelled over there, "See, I'm a pretty good guy. I'm a pretty good guy." See, mm-hmm. And pretty soon, though, right around 10:30, I felt complete relief, complete calm. They obviously had left, or at least whatever was making them mad. But during the night, I could hear this fraying noise. And just like when you take a popsicle stick and you bend it and then you start doing this every kid's done it, and I still do it. I had a popsicle today at work because it's so hot. But I thought to myself, what could that be? They're fraying something. Well, finally, it's around 4:30 in the day. My wife finally shows up, and she gets out, and I walked right up to her, and she's like, "What's going on?" Because she could tell something was not right with me.
You knew.
And I told her, I said, "Sasquatch had been here all night." And oh yeah, she was right away. She's like, "Oh, geez," because we, as younger people, her and I, we like I said, we knew Renee DeHanden. I used to work with Will Jevning. Literally gave him a ride back and forth to work for a couple of years. We were like best of friends for a while back in the early 90s. And so she knew. We've always known Mount St. Helens is like the prime in the United States. That is the place that you're going to find Sasquatch. That is the place. That's where the cabin was attacked. All that. There's such a history there. But yeah, she was just like, holy cow. So she actually bought wood. She just had this feeling that I was going to burn all that wood up. That wood should have lasted a couple of days. Right. And so we sat down, and I started telling her everything that happened. And then she said, well, let's take a look at the creek here. And I said, what creek? And here's where I'm missing time to this day. I'm missing time.
Really?
And this is probably why I'm on the medication stuff. I've been told when it comes back, it's going to come back hard. But I'm missing time because I don't remember the creek. I don't remember. It's right there in front of the camp. It's right there. And I said, did you know there's a creek here? She says, yes, we both knew. Because you talked about how much fun our grandson could have in this little slow-moving creek. And I was like, wow. I said, well, how about that tree over there? Was that there? There was that tree that I told you was, I could hear this fraying. It was about a 4-inch, 5-inch around. They took it down right at the base of the ground, literally. So all you had was all the fraying sticking up, and that brought down. She said, no, that wasn't like that yesterday. So we walked across there, and there were tracks just like you see on TV. That's the only time in my life I've ever seen them like that, ever. Not before or since. There was one that was about 3/4 of the entire track, where you could see that it was standing in the moss, and then the rest was in that ash, the Mount St. Helens ash. Mm-hmm. And it was well over 24 inches. And that screws with me today because I don't believe that is possible.
24 inches. That's at least 10 foot or more, easily 10 foot.
It just massive. Everything that science tells you, everything that gravity tells you, that's impossible. Unless it's just a creature with a very, very huge foot. But there were 14-inch tracks, 16-inch tracks, 18-inch tracks. There were 7-inch tracks, 9-inch tracks. They were everywhere through there.
Mhm.
And so this
Sounds like a
tree,
whole family troop was of them
they
were
were
out
they
there.
were they were
Family.
definitely.
Mhm.
So this tree is brought down, and it's a alder tree. It's pushed over, and then it's snapped and twisted back this way. That it was about a 30 to 35 foot tall tree. And then they pulled up a small one from the other side of it, pulled it up by the roots, and laid that over it. And it looked like an A.
Really?
It looked like an A. It looked like an A, almost like the Star Trek symbol. It
Yeah.
was like this, but then this thing came. But we
That's
started
crazy.
seeing those all over there throughout the years. I don't. I think that they mark things and use that,
Yeah.
but I don't buy this crap where they're
I
leaving
wonder
everybody
what that means.
messages.
I've seen an A before, and I wonder what that meant because I know X's and bends and X's and the glyphs and all, but I've never got to really figure out what an A means. I wonder. I'll have to find out from my friend Robin McCrae because she can she's able to mind speak and she knows a lot. She communicates with the Sasquatch and she'll be able to find out what an A means. I'll ask her.
I asked
Yeah.
because I didn't realize I was a kind of a big fan of Mitchell Townsend.
Okay.
Because he had found the bones and the teeth marks in the bones. I didn't realize he was so far woo that it just clouded his mind. But there was all these people at this event, and sure enough, a person tells me, "Oh, that means welcome." I was like, "Welcome? What do you mean welcome? Some bitches tried to kill us." What do you mean welcome? People put a lot of. I've talked to guys when I was at that conference. That's the one guy says, "Oh, I've interpreted that Ron Moorhead stuff years ago and told him what they said and all that stuff." And it's look, I know people that can imitate those sounds so perfectly. It's not outside the realm of human anything. It's, to me, nothing else has been produced in 50 years, over 50 years of sounds. Nothing. It doesn't matter. Look, I've been everywhere. And
Look up
there's some things.
Mike Peterson, Ontario Sasquatch or Ontario Bigfoot. That guy with his Nefertiti. I was listening to the audio today, and the lung capacity of that audio cannot be duplicated by a human. That's
Well,
freaking crazy.
the Mike Patterson. Well, I mean, I disagree, but that's okay. See how I still love you.
We gotta love to disagree. Agree to disagree, man.
And because the one guy came out that proved he was the voice of Nefertia. But for me, what happened to us after my wife got there and we walked over there, I felt like we were always taught by our Native American friends that if they bring a tree down, you don't cross it because they want their children not to come past that, and they want us not to go forward. And so they seem to know those of us who have knowledge of them. And I believe that they recognize the vehicles that you drive. I believe they recognize who you are throughout time.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a guy for a while now that's been getting a lot of casts, and I've been telling him that, well, he's been taking pictures. He hasn't been casting. I've been telling him, you need to cast these prints. And I told him, and I'll tell you why. I know that you're not doing this to get famous or anything like that. I said, but you might be able to start a record of, say, this one's 9 years old or 10 years old or whatever. And she or whatever is leaving their prints.
Yeah.
Well, and they're going to leave distinctive things from their feet.
Yeah.
You have a solid opportunity of documenting the life and growth of this particular, creature. I firmly believe in that stuff. If I would have known, if I would have had, we weren't looking for Bigfoot, dude. We were going up there that weekend, we love each other. You know, we were looking forward to having our grandson come up there and our youngest son, and just enjoying a just beautiful final summer weekend and all that stuff. And I was going to go gold panning. That was the plan.
Mhm.
And we were going to explore a little bit and, you know, pick some berries. And we actually talked and said, you know, it'd be cool if we saw some Sasquatch tracks. And yeah, we saw some. But yeah, oh yeah, we did. Lots of them. And it was, I just wish, you know, I talked to Cliff Brockman,
Mhm.
and I talked to him just like 6 months ago, actually, or well, maybe it's a little longer. It was somewhere around September. But anyway, I interviewed him. I have a cooking show, and I haven't done it in a little while. I'm kind of taking a break right now. But I interviewed him, asking, you know, what'd you like to eat when you were out and about? Because I cook, all my cooking is done outdoors, and like I cook the tri-tip steaks on flat rocks over fire. Everything I do is either over coals or fire.
Nice.
And oh yeah, so that's one of my specialties. But so I'm talking to him for a little bit, and I decided, you know what, this happened. I'm going to talk to him about what happened to us. So I told him, I start telling him what I'm telling you guys, and he stops me and he goes, "Any pictures?" I was like, "No," and he goes, "Well," and I was like, "Hey, you fucker, really? 9 years on a show, you got any pictures, asshole?" You know, and then he gets a phone call. It's Bobo. So he says, "Oh, I got to take this call." He literally just walked away from me. I thought, Jesus, I hate those guys. I don't like any of those guys. The big name people, they don't give a shit. If we ever solve this, that's why I thought we were going to be like, I was going to have everybody in the world up there, and we were going to solve this. Like, I couldn't believe that no one ever contacted me back. I thought, oh my God, they're there. They're there. And, you know, so
it's an agenda.
You know,
agenda.
What I'll tell you what's his name? Alexander Petikov, you know, he's a friend of mine. And he told me, he says, Cliff is a little jaded. I'm not trying to talk shit about Cliff or anything like that. I just couldn't believe nobody wants to hear the truth. Nobody wants to hear the real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm not mixing it up with all kinds of magic and crap like that. Nobody wants to hear the real stuff. Nobody wants to hear it, because that's going to take away from all those stupid events where anything Sasquatch is going to get you a minimum of $20. You know, you better get your checkbook out and make sure you work some overtime, you know, to pay for them $40 knockoff sweatshirts that someone's got a blue screen, you know, they can do their, you know, their thing. But yeah, that put a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, because the first person I tried to contact was Cliff. Back in 2016, I sent him 4 messages, never heard back from him. I told him that too. I told him that like 2 years into it. He doesn't remember me from Adam. These guys don't. If you don't wear the black little tiny cowboy hats and don't have some kind of stupid freaky story, they got nothing to do with you. So that's where I'm soured on that shit. I have been invited to speak, or at least be a part of what they call Beachfoot here.
Yeah, Beachfoot.
And I'm very excited about that. I mean, very, very excited about that. Someone's taking me serious enough. So
yeah.
But
so
it was
you
so
and
much.
You and your wife were still at the campsite, right, when this happened? So it was right before. It was like right before it started getting dark again. Is when it got really intense, or?
Well, no. What happened was it's weird. So I'm telling her all kinds of stuff. She just can't believe it. So we're sitting down, and we got the fire going and everything, and I believe I'm finally comfortable enough to have a beer. One of the reasons why I want everybody to know why I didn't drink that beer the night before when all this was happening was, if I was able to be rescued, if someone literally drove into my camp, I wanted to not be the drunk guy going, "Hey, there's a Sasquatch over there." You know, I wanted to be completely stone cold sober.
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't drink anything. I was too terrified. I just didn't want to do it. So so I think I finally got comfortable enough to sit there and have a beer with her. She doesn't drink beer, but I mean, sat there with her, and I was just so happy to see her. I've never been so happy in my life. I had never. I can't even remember the last time I've ever been so happy to see her. And so we're sitting there, and this raven starts circling our camp, and it keeps stopping just a little to the left of us in this camp. He would hover, and then he'd go around us again. He'd hover again. And then on the third time, as he's hovering, he does a, and this thing goes, "Hoo, hoo," just like that from just where we couldn't see, man. I was like, Jesus. Yeah. Oh my God. Had to be their juvenile. This thing was like, I believe they communicate with the crows. I believe that's their eye in the sky. And I believe that thing was probably babysitting him, because it didn't take long. And I stood up to go pee, and I stood right at the edge of the creek over here. And as I looked up, I'm wearing this bright red hoodie. As I look up, there's this woman coming down the trail on the other side. And I just thought, well, that's weird. And I thought she was heavily layered. She had a Caucasian face, and she kept looking at me, and I was looking at her too. I was just like, oh my God. And my wife's like, what? And I said, there's a lady coming. And I couldn't stop peeing. I was really, because of my nerves and everything that weekend. Oh my God. Oh,
I bet. Yeah, your nerves were
shot. So her coat started sparkling. I was just like, oh man, I'm blinking my eyes. And so I told her, I said, she's got this crazy coat. She's, it's got purple and pink and just kind of weird, because it had just stopped raining. It just rained a little bit. And when she's walking, she's coming down. So she's looking down, and she looked at me. Her arms were, nothing told me that was, I just thought she was a big, heavy set woman, layered, with a hoodie. And she was obviously Caucasian. And then just as my wife got up to walk over and look, she took an abrupt left face into the forest, like one fluid motion, just like a pivot, just like that, gone. And that's when it hit me. I was like, that wasn't a woman. Women don't have 4-foot shoulders, man. I don't know why I was thinking that. Well, I'll get to the bling. I'll tell you what the bling was here in a couple minutes. But so I think that, and my wife thinks also, that was her keeping my attention so that kid could get back over there.
Oh yeah.
And which I believe that. I firmly believe it. So we're sitting down and just kind of talking about all this stuff that's going on. This is just never happened to us before or since. This is just an unbelievable, weird. All of a sudden we hear this, everything goes quiet. Now we hear this whoop, whoop, just like that. It was like they were just out of sight, but that was the most incredible. It was so much different than anything I've ever heard. Wow. It was amazing. And I believe that she was either getting that kid over there or something, but it sounded like two different, the whoops sound like there was from one and a different one. And you could hear them back there talking. It sounded like when deaf people are, when they're we have a lot of deaf people where I work, actually. And when they're that's what they do. And I'm not making fun. That's what they do. That's what it sounded like. You could hear just like if your neighbor's having a conversation down the block, you could hear them, but you can't hear what they're saying. And that was amazing. And then she started screaming, and there was like an argument going on back there. I found out from a few other people throughout time that they actually call that female the screamer up there.
Oh.
And she keeps her little tribe she was very mad at those at the obviously the juvenile and whatever
Right.
those other ones were doing to me. She wasn't
The
happy.
juvenile gangbangers were
Yep.
giving you that
I
problem.
believe now. I believe now that aggressive one, although he was like my wife happened to glance up and she saw him. He was peekabooing her, and she actually saw his ear as he ducked down.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was just weird. But yeah, there were some people in trouble back there. That's for sure. Got in trouble. That's what it reminded us of. But dude, they were there that entire weekend. My wife at that time, she got up way before me. She's sitting out there enjoying hearing the sticks popping and the murmuring back there and all that. They were there that entire weekend. So then my son gets there. He's 6'4.5", 300 pounds. And my grandson, who was just 3 at the time. And I took my son over there. He was so mad that we were even that we even stayed there. He was so upset with us. He had told his mom when he called my wife when after she dropped me off, and he said, "So are you guys still going to go tomorrow and all that stuff?" And she goes, "Yeah, Dad's already up there." He said, "Dad's up there by himself?" She said, "Yeah." And he says, "Are you going to go get him?" Because that's one of the rules in our family. You don't camp alone. You don't hunt alone. And I broke it. But like I said, the machismo in me, which is, it ain't there now. I don't care about machismo. My coward ass is going home with you. So that's just how I look at it. But yeah, we finally, we decided. I was a nervous wreck when my grandson got there. And my son, when he was over there looking at all those prints, he just kept shaking his head. And he looked, even at 6'4.5", he looked so little to me compared to that female I saw. I wouldn't give her much more than 6 foot, 5'11", somewhere in there. But the bulk on her,
oh yeah,
was just really something.
Wide, she had to be 600 pounds easily.
Yeah, and I just like, and Josh, he's looking at what his prints are leaving, and what these prints were doing, and so I just we didn't go far up there. There was a lot of destruction back there. There was lots of trees that were busted. I mean, like trees that are 5-6 inches around, 10 feet high, busted in half like they were kicked. There was, this was the end of summer. There was no high winds or anything. Mm-hmm. They were busted. Were like the top 5 feet mm-hmm. were kicked 10 feet away from
like a war zone out in the woods.
There was logs strewn all over the place. There were imprints where trees had been in the ground, down trees into the moss for years and years and years. They were thrown up everywhere. So we walked back to the camp and everything, and my grandson kept wanting to play so close to that creek, and I just was mentally I was screwed up by that time, and I just didn't like him being anywhere near that. So but I'll tell you what, my wife and I on Sunday, we decided we'd pack up and go home, and we did, and we talked a lot about this, and we thought, who do we go to? And I decided we need to go back up there, because what I did was I thought to myself, all right, if we violated, and I said this out loud, if we violated crossing that tree, I apologize from the deepest, I'm sorry. And that my wife has made some sugarless cornbread, and I will leave this for you. And I took that over there, and I laid it in a certain area and all that stuff. So, so we came back a month later. It took me that long to be able to see myself going back. And so we went back a month later, and she made a bunch of sugarless wild berry muffins, because I didn't want to give them sugar. In my own mind, I'm thinking to myself, they have meat, they have berries, but they don't have grain. And so I thought to myself, probably wouldn't hurt to give them some grain if we don't put sugar in it. I think it's awful to take sugar out to wild animals. It's awful. And so probably even the feeding thing. But so we took those out. We brought some chicken. It was just a Friday night. We decided it was October now. And still none of the hunters or anything had gone into that camp, which was weird to me. And one of the maintenance guys at work, when I told them what happened to me and her that weekend, he said, I'm going up there and I'm going to make a friend. And so he went up there and took his 3-year-old daughter, and I told him, man, don't take your kids up there. there's an aggressive Sasquatch in there. But anyway, he stopped in there at 10 o'clock at night during the hunting season, was going to stay. He got creeped out. What he did was he threw a loaf of bread across that creek and he left. He came back, and the next morning, the loaf of bread was on this side of the creek with a tear in the middle, and the middle portion of the bread is gone without it looking like it had been torn up or anything like that. Whatever it was, tore the package, grabbed a bunch, and left. And that's how he found the bread.
Something with fingers, big fingers that tear it open.
Yeah. And the thing is, like I said, nobody stayed in there. So my wife and I decided we'd go back and bring them the muffins and stuff. And we bought some chicken and decided we'd build a campfire and enjoy each other's company and see if they like, we took those muffins with us and everything. So, we walked back there, and it was not a good feeling this time either. I was like, this something ain't right. So we walked back in there pretty good too. And I smell, this is the first time I've ever smelled them. And I looked at her and I said, you smell that? She's like, yeah, it smelled like kitchen garbage is what it smelled like, household garbage. Yeah. And then we start hearing this tapping noise. You start hearing this. And then behind us, you'd hear. And then to the side, you'd hear this. They were communicating all around us by tapping these trees, not smacking them, tapping them with their fingers. Yeah. And I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and she's like, let's just go back to that camp. So I had this little, it's not a GoPro. It was an underwater variety that kids bought me. And so I kept that behind me the whole time, trying to hide it, but trying to film just in case anything goes on behind me. But we got to back to the camp, calm down a little bit, and it's a nice fire. It's just not quite dark, and I decided that I had like 3 or 4 beers, and because she drives, so I can drink. Have a couple of beers. And I don't mean drink where I just get all I don't do that. I like to have a couple of beers or a couple of drinks. And so I decided that I would imitate that sound that they did to me the month previous. And I did it, and then I did it louder, and then I did it extremely aggressive. And then I stopped to take a sip of beer, and I heard this crash. And then I turned around, and just as I said, "Did you hear?" She said, "Yes." As that came out of my mouth, and that son of a bitch jumped across that creek and stayed right in the tree line, right beside us. And my poor wife was wrapped in her chair with a blanket, and she has a pocket in her chair, had the car keys in it, and so we're bolting to the cars. It sounds like a herd of elephants, literally. And so she said I got to the car and held the gun up while she got in and all that stuff. But I saw the look on her face, and she made this sound. I thought he got her. That's where the mental thing had come in for me. Mm-hmm. The look on her face was she dropped the keys, but not that he was there. I seriously thought he was right there and is going to get her. And so we get in the car, and oh man, neither one of us can breathe. And then she's like, I dropped the keys. Well, at first I told her, why don't you start this son of a bitch? You know, she goes, I can't. I dropped the keys because we're just sitting there. I'm like, aren't you starting this? So she said, they're just right out here. So she opened the door and got them. And we're looking around. And oh my God, I had that thing out, and I didn't realize those things had upside downs and shit. So everything I'm filming is upside down. And
oh gosh.
yeah, so she says, do we need to pick up our chairs, or you just want to leave them here? Because we just got brand new chairs and all that shit. I was like, well, we bought mine on the way. So,
right. You can get
new
well,
let's, I said, roll down your window and let's listen. And she goes, I'm not rolling down the window. So we'll roll down the back window then. She rolled down the back window and I'm listening. I go, well, back up and let's get them real quick. So she backs up, and that's when I see there's in the right, we're right here on the little road that comes in, and then you got the forest. Well, right here is got white bark on the tree, and all I see is the white bark, black, then white bark, and that was like 8 feet, but it was like watching smoke. It's the only way I can describe it, like ice skating. It was so unbelievable how graceful it was with all the noise. It was just graceful though, and all of a sudden there's no noise or anything like that. So we get out, and I still got that thing going. Well, I tell her just before we get out, don't turn it off. And so she likes to play that for people when they come over slowly, in slow motion. Don't turn it off, because she makes her laugh. But we get out, and I've got that thing, and I literally have the holding on to the back of the car, and I'm reaching for my. I mean, literally, I've got that death grip on the car, and I've got my finger tipping this I finally get my chair. And we throw it in the back. I thought she was just going to open the back doors and we'd do that. No, hell no. She opened the trunk and everything. And so then she opens a bottle of water, starts throwing it on that fire. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, we can't leave the fire. I said, that son of a bitch is right there. So I said, just get in the car and let's go. So we drove out of there and we left that fire going. But when we got to the end of that road that comes in there, we stopped, and we were having those what do you call that when you go into uncontrollable laughter and coughing and all that. It was that
hysterical.
It was a panic attack.
Okay.
And her purse was all tangled up in her legs, and we're just like, oh my God. And we rolled down the windows because we feel safe finally, but we're just trying to get our breath. We smoked back then. We've been tobacco free now for 5 years. So
nice.
After 43 years of smoking, I chewed for almost 40. I just got some Chantex, and wow, it's gone. So, but yeah, it's been wonderful. But oh my God, yeah, that was so terrifying. So we head back to Vancouver, and we just sat outside the little duplex. We and just silently, we didn't know what to say. We didn't talk much going home or anything. We talked about it.
Mine was warped. I mean, you thought you were going to die. You were in such a intense encounter where it was terrifying and everything combined. Where your mind was just blah. It didn't know what to do. All the senses were lifted and elevated by 100% probably, and
there's no one to talk
down from adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm. There's no one to talk to. There was you can't. If it hadn't been for people like Sibylla or guys like Leon Thompson or Curious Cryptid, Steve Anderson, guys like these people, there's no these other people they didn't give a shit. I literally sent emails to Dr. Meldrum and all that other stuff, and I never got a. But I can tell you, my wife will tell you actually that I finally heard. In my own opinion, I think Wes is a liar. But back then, I didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. And after trying everybody, all these big name people, I sent him a message, and it came back because I didn't spell Chronicles right. My wife actually saw the message, and she redid the whole thing and sent it to him because my mind was so screwed up.
You couldn't type it. You couldn't type it like that.
She's like, you that looked like some kind of crazy rambling man wrote some crazy ass. And so he contacted me the next day. But I'll always be grateful to him, whether or not I believe his story is a whole different thing. I will always be grateful to him for the human being part of him that reached out to me to talk about it. Because people just think we do a show like this, and that's, well, we spoke in private for 2 days before I even did it. And so of course we haven't talked since, really, but I separate myself. The older I get, there's so much bullshit, in my opinion, involved in this subject. There's so much water that's so murky. It's like you start out with a cup of clear water, and then they just have to add this, then this, then this, then this. We can't prove one yet. You got all these people going, oh, there's 7 varieties of them, besides that, I also talked to the gin, and it just keeps going and going and going. Pretty soon, not only can you not drink it, but it's too dark to look through. And I've gotten sick of that shit, because I was back when Renee was alive and people like that, and it was horrible back then without an internet. All right. It was bad back then. These guys would call each other on the phone, threaten each other. All those guys, Peter Byrne, Renee, all those guys, Titmus, all of them, they all stole from one another. Renee DeHenden most likely stole the original copy of the film because he was in that lawyer's office with it on his desk when the lawyer left the room and came back and wasn't there. So did he? I don't know. I loved Renee DeHenden. I loved the guy. But those guys, even way back then, without any of this kind of stuff, if you watch the Sasquatch archives, and I hope all of you do, it's wonderful. You get it on YouTube. People have started making a real archive of these events and stuff, and you can see how disruptive some of these guys were when all they had was events back then and video cameras. Very disruptive to one another. The fighting, the infighting, and now it's creepy little dirty fingers. I hate that stuff. I basically have shadowed myself out of this with almost everyone.
What's your channel called before we finish? Because we're getting that close to time. What's the channel that your YouTube channel, so people can kind of get into it and check out some of your videos? Because I know you do like cooking with barbecue Bigfoot. What's it called?
It's the Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp Cookbook.
Nice.
Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp Cookbook. And I'm just on hiatus right now. I'm getting back to where I'm going to be doing it again. It's summer, and I'm very, very busy with my wife and I. We love camping every week if we can, so that's what we do. And but I mostly film everything I do when I'm cooking. So,
if you ever want to have me on briefly and do a talk and a quick conversation during one of your uploads, get a hold of me, and I'll be glad to come on your show as well. Even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, just shooting the shit over your campfire doing a quick live stream or something. I'm game for that,
I did have a podcast last year, but I got COVID. And I got COVID during one of the, it was so bad. It was Christmas, and I was reading a story that I wrote back in 96 or 97 called The Tree. and I had given it as a gift to my cousin Becky, and then she had done some editing and some things like that, and then sent it to me so I could read it. All them years later, I read it last year, but I noticed I was really pain, having a lot of trying to talk and read that, and I was so out of it by the end of that podcast. We haven't done it. We went ahead and called it quits. We had good guests. The Reverend, I think the Reverend was close to one of our last ones, and but I'm not. I do have the YouTube channel. I'm not podcasting anymore. I like doing stuff like this. It was great. I haven't talked to Tom in a while, but I love doing this. What I'd like to do is ask the guys everybody in the chat, watch the Sasquatch archives, and right now you've got. Last night was the PG film, The Skeptical Side, that was from 2004. I'd like for you all to watch that. Then watch. Tonight they have, and it'll be on, you could pick it from there. It's the Patterson Gimlin film, The Affirmative Side. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is let's give it a couple weeks, give everybody a chance to watch it. I'd like for you to watch it too. Can you have me back? And then we'll, let's talk about both sides of this film.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll do that. Maybe like the first or second week of October.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll have you back on, and we'll chew the fat more, shoot the shit, and kind of go back and a little history detail. And yeah, I'd be glad to do that. If everyone else is cool with that, if everyone wants Jay to come back, that'd be great. Jay's offering to come back. That's a good thing. I haven't said we haven't spoken in so many years. I mean, we kind of went back and forth in Messenger, back and forth, like, hey, you want to come on so and so, and what's the name of your channel again? So people are still asking.
It's Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp Cookbook.
Bigfoot Barbecue. It's Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp
BBQ.
I'm just typing this out real quick.
Yeah, it's Bigfoot and then BBQ and Camp Cookbook.
Heck yeah. Well, Jay, it's getting close to getting off here, so I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to go. And it was an honor to have you back on after so many years of kind of, contemplating and talking and back and forth and a little bit of hiatus. I'm looking forward to having you on in October so we can go back and review this, the videos you were mentioning. So that sounds great.
I think that's important. I really do. I think that's a great thing.
Well,
Flat Rock Sugar, you're the man.
Comparing and putting your input on what you think or whatever. I mean, like we mentioned before, I mean, you can agree to disagree and still be friends and not mm-hmm. go to war with each other like some people in the community do over if they don't see eye to eye or they don't agree on certain things. But it shouldn't be like that. That's how everyone should have their own opinions, and if you could work together and kind of filter through and take heed to this one, and whatever the fact is, that's what makes the community stronger, not weaker. So yeah. Well, everybody, y'all have a great night, and Jay, thanks again. And I'm going to text you in about 5 minutes, Jay, and you have a good night.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody. Good night, y'all.